Picture the SAT board deciding who gets campus housing, who gets the scholarship, and who gets the internship. Oh, and they're running the job fair too. That's what this week felt like in AI land. The people who build the models aren't just shaping the tools anymore. They're starting to shape the ladder you climb. Welcome to AI Replaced Me. It's September 6th, 2025. I'm Koby Ofek, author of Keep Your Day Job, How to AI Proof Your Career, and this is episode 18. I'm going to make some pretty bold predictions in the next few minutes, so make sure to listen to know exactly where the tide is going. Let's start where the ground actually moved. This week, OpenAI did something audacious. It stepped from the lab bench onto the factory floor of the labor market. A jobs platform announced for next year. A national certification push that aims to mint millions of AI literate workers, with a mega employer already on board and a White House spotlight that says, yes, this is a thing. Translate that into plain workplace terms, and you get the referee is now proposing the rulebook, the drills, and the scouting combined. Here's why that matters. If a single certification becomes the way you prove you can orchestrate agents, write production-safe prompts, and QA model output, then employers start treating that badge like a driver's license. You might still have a resume, a GPA, a GitHub, but the badge becomes a turnstile that actually clicks when you walk through. That can be clarifying for hiring managers drowning in noise and stressful for anyone who remembers how quickly mandatory certifications turn into toll booths. Now, I'm not allergic to credentials. I'm allergic to hollow ones. If this certification ends up being multiple choice trivia, what's the default temperature? Then it will inflate and pop like a cheap balloon. But if it's scenario based, here is a messy support queue. Design a containment plan, build safe prompts, map escalation trees, instrument the QA. Then yes, that can serve as a real on-ramp in a year when entry-level rungs are disappearing. The point isn't to crown prompt gurus. It's to prove you can run a tiny piece of an actual system end to end without breaking anything important. Two practical questions I'll be watching. First, breadth. Do employers beyond the launch partner commit publicly to accept the cert for specific roles and pay bands? Second, portability. Does the badge travel outside one vendor's stack? If it stays too siloed, it hardens into platform lock-in for human beings. If it travels, it becomes labor mobility in a pocket. Let's push this forward. And I'm going to make a few bold bets so you can play along at home. Bet 1. Within 12 months of launch, job posts at 50 or more Fortune 500 companies will explicitly list AI orchestration certification, accepted/required. And by 2027, it will sit where bachelor's preferred used to live for a subset of ops and support roles. Not because it's perfect, because it's legible. Hiring managers pick legibility over nuance when they're drowning. 2. The jobs platform won't just be a fancy job board. It'll quietly become an assessment exchange. Think pay for proof. Employers will post micro-work challenges, build an agent to triage these emails, tune a retrieval pipeline for this policy corpus, write a safety harness for this prompt, and candidates will earn signed, machine-verified artifacts. Those artifacts will be portable and time-stamped. Living portfolios, graded by models, spot-checked by humans. It'll feel like Kaggle meets Upwork meets a driving test. And yes, the first wave will be messy and gamed. That's how every marketplace is born. Bet 3, there will be a human capital flywheel nobody admits out loud. Candidates will submit work samples, logs, and telemetry to prove competence. That data, even if anonymized and aggregated, is training gold. The platform that certifies talent also improves its models using the proof of talent. That's not a scandal. It's a structural incentive. But it raises a policy question. Do workers get a cut of the value their proof creates? Expect pressure for opt outs, transparent data use, maybe even a tiny data dividend attached to assessments. Bet 4. Prices will do the usual platform dance. In year 1, certified agent orchestrators will command a premium. In year 2, supply floods in and rates compress. By year 3, the premium remains only at the edges. Complex orgs, safety critical flows, multilingual or domain specific stacks. So if you're early, don't chase the median badge. Chase the weird, healthcare compliance prompts, financial audit guardrails, airline operations with union constraints. Oats live in the particulars. Will sniff around the vertical integration. When the model maker also runs the credential and the job's matching, that's a lot of leverage. I don't think it gets shut down. I think it gets bounded. Disclosures about data usage, portability guarantees, interoperability with university credit systems, and maybe an agreement that hiring rankings aren't pay to play. If the sorting hat is for sale, the magic dies. Bet 6. Cheating will be a feature, not a bug, because it forces the system to get real. Remote proctoring, sandboxed evaluation, randomized capstones, show your work logs, and adversarial test sets will become the bread and butter of the certification. You'll even see small black markets, cert farms, pop up and then get stamped out. Painful, inevitable, and ultimately healthy. Community colleges will partner with local employers and say, finish the cert, do a 6-week sprint inside an SMB, produce a measurable outcome, get a letter. This is where policy, philanthropy, and big buyers can do the most good with the least bureaucracy. If the platform leans into that, it helps build the ladder it just disrupted. And yes, one anti-bet, this could fizzle. If the exams are soft, if employers don't trust them, if the jobs platform turns into a resume bucket with better gloss, we'll be back here in a year saying, remember that. Credibility is earned with hard tests, clear scoring rubrics, verifiable outcomes, and the courage to fail people who aren't ready yet. Here's my most provocative claim. The company that owns the first broadly trusted proof of work for AI literate labor will shape the early career pipeline more than any single university department in the next 5 years. Not because degrees die, but because employers don't have time. If the referee writes the drills and runs the combine, the draft board starts to look suspiciously like the rule book. Okay, enough with the bets. What else did we follow this week? Salesforce's Mark Benioff said the quiet part plainly. AI agents took customer support headcount from roughly 9,000 to around 5,000. Not productivity uplift, not doing more with less. A subtraction you can feel. And if you track the regulatory filings, you saw fresh layoff notices hit this week in a couple of US hubs, support orgs being replumbed for an agentic enterprise. Let me translate the strategy in human terms. Imagine a call center as a stadium full of people trained to handle 100 recurring plays. Agents are now the defense that stops 80 of those plays at the line of scrimmage. Humans rotate in for the 20 weird ones that require judgment, emotion, recovery. The KPI shifts from average handle time to recovery wins. How often the human picks up a mess and turns it into loyalty. That's not a science fiction picture. That's right now. And here's the subtle part. When you remove thousands of level 1 tickets from human hands, you don't just reduce headcount. You reduce the apprenticeship surface where tomorrow's seniors learn. If you want seasoned escalation leads in 2027, somebody has to design junior pathways on purpose in 2025. Rotations tied to live agent systems, new roles like intent librarian and exception mapper, paid seats where real customers and real metrics are the classroom. If you don't, you wake up with a brittle pyramid. Too few people who actually know how the plumbing works when the lights flicker. Now, a sanity check, because the internet can turn one anecdote into macro truth in 12 seconds. The New York Fed put out new survey analysis showing adoption racing ahead, especially in services, while AI-driven layoffs are still rare in the aggregate. That reads like a contradiction until you look at where the tech lands. In high-volume, templated workflows, support, claims intake, some back-office ops, automation finds purchase fast. In blended roles with diverse tasks, you first see hiring freezes, non-backfills, and job redesign. The reduction shows up later. So we have a layered picture: a big public company drawing a sharp line in one function, a regional survey saying, breathe, this isn't a pink slip tsunami yet, and the lab announcing it wants to credential and route millions of people to where the demand may be headed. If you feel whiplash, that's because you're watching three gears engage at once: substitution, redesign, and recredentialing. Let's widen the lens for a minute, because the dashboard lights this week were busy. Announced layoffs jumped again in August. That's the forward-looking series where companies say what they intend to cut, and this year's tally has already overshot last year's full count. Meanwhile, the official jobs report showed a softer print: tiny payroll growth, unemployment up, and a revision that gave us the first monthly decline since 2020. Markets immediately shifted toward rate cuts sooner, because a cooler labor market changes the math. When demand is shaky, managers pause hiring and lean harder on tech to cover variability. You don't need to prove that AI caused the slowdown to see how a slowdown invites more AI. Layer in one more piece: warn filings at another large incumbent, tied by the press to a broader portfolio, reshuffle as the company spends billions on AI and cloud infrastructure. They didn't write "we laid people off to buy GPUs," because nobody writes that on a form. But the financial physics are visible. If revenue from AI arrives later and the infrastructure spend happens now, you bridge with cuts and freezes in legacy teams. It's the corporate equivalent of moving your couch to fit a larger TV. You end up throwing out a chair. And then there's the inequality argument, humming in the background like a sub-bass note. Jeffrey Hinton, one of the field's pioneers, offered the blunt version this week: barring policy guardrails, AI makes a few people much richer and pushes many people toward poorer. Not because the technology is evil, but because our incentive structures reward labor saving more than ladder building. Put the Salesforce example next to that frame and you get a very specific worry. If the enterprise adopts agents at the entry point and does nothing to rebuild the junior path, the pyramid hardens at the top and hollows in the middle. Okay, how do we pull this out of the clouds and into Monday morning? If you run a team, redesign junior as a product. Name the skills and the outcomes. Pay for a protected pathway where newcomers own narrowly scoped parts of the agent stack. Prompt libraries with version control, exception maps with real numbers, recovery playbooks to get A/B tested. Make the first win small and measurable, containment up 2 points, cycle time down 12 seconds, escalation noise down 3%. Signal publicly which external badges you accept and what they count for, which titles, which pay bands, which progression. Vagueness kills trust faster than a bad exam. If you're early career, assume the first interview is a work sample and the second is a postmortem. Build tiny proof projects that fix real processes. Before, inbound emails took 19 hours to triage. After, we built an agent that labels intents, routes edge cases to a human, and added a recovery script for the three most common escalations. Attainment improved from 41% to 58%. Here's the dashboard. Don't argue for your potential. Demonstrate it in a system that looks suspiciously like the one they already run. If you sit on the policy side or buy at enterprise scale, the lever you actually control is portability plus pay. Portable micro-credentials tied to paid apprenticeships beat unpaid homework. You can require vendors to provide apprenticeship seats as part of deployment. You can subsidize the first 6 months of on-the-job training if companies adopt portable credential standards. It's not glamorous policy, it works. Let's bring in two threads from the broader economy that color the stakes. First, manufacturing. The headline indices showed contraction again, but beneath that, you saw islands of growth where companies shoveled money into AI. Think of a factory that chose to become a software company with a foundry attached. Intellectual property spend jumped. Output oddly still slipped. And job cuts accelerated. That's the paradox. Capital-intensive progress outpacing labor-intensive production. For workers, the opportunity migrates from the line to the system around the line. Maintenance that looks like MLOps, quality that looks like statistical vigilance, logistics that look like reinforcement learning. Second, the early career pipeline. A couple of rigorous looks at the data this year showed the canary in the coal mine isn't mid-career analysts. It's 22 to 25-year-olds in AI-exposed roles. Employment down for them, up for seniors in the same functions. Wages didn't collapse, openings did. That's an access problem, not just a pay problem. And it collides with the graduate job market, where postings are down and elite employers quietly tightened intakes. Mix in rising living costs and the credential race, and you get the feeling many new grads are paying for a gym where the treadmills have been unplugged. Let's do our future forward flashes bit next. 5 fast glimpses at where this is heading next. None of them a rerun of what we just covered.
Oh my goodness! Time for future forward flashes!
First, comp plans will add an automation dividend line, not a bonus for doing your job. An explicit share of measured savings when the team's workflow gets re-engineered with agents. Once that appears in one Fortune 500, you'll see internal Slack channels called #DividendHunters by morning. Second, Agent Incident Command becomes a real on-call. We've normalized security and SRE rotations. By spring, you'll see AOC, Agent Operations Center, rotations with a playbook for hallucination containment, policy drift, and fast rollback, plus a nightly agent failures stand-up. The title will sound dorky. The resume bullet will not. Third, Shadow AI gets legalized through BYOA policies. Bring your own agent moves from taboo to tolerated. Companies will publish whitelists, automatic prompt redaction for sensitive data, logging by default, and a panic switch for anything that looks like leak risk. It's the seatbelt era for everyday automation. Fourth, arbitration bots reshape customer care careers. A lot of chargeback work and dispute resolution is pattern-driven, time-bounded, and boring. Perfect for first-pass agents. Humans will move into fairness reviewer roles where the metric isn't speed, it's justice. Was the decision both correct and perceived as fair? That's a skill set you can teach and test. And last but not least, union clauses and vendor contracts start asking for model explainability at work, not academic proofs. Practical transparency, what version is running, what guardrails are in place, how we audit bias on the flows that touch pay, promotion, and discipline. The fight won't be slogans. It'll be sentence-level language that sets how working people are governed by models they didn't write. So, here's how I want to leave you today. When the test maker becomes the job gate, there are only two honest responses. One, make the test real, hands on, leak safe, scenario tight, and make the ladders paid. Two, refuse to outsource your own proof. Whether you're a company or a student, don't wait for anyone's blessing. Publish the before and after of a process you improved. Show the graph. Own the plumbing. Because in a week like this, the future of work doesn't look like a cliff edge. It looks like a building code. If we write it well, the structure holds. If we don't, the rungs snap right when you need them. I'm Koby Ofek, and this was AI Replaced Me. If you want a practical field guide for staying useful while the floor plan shifts, my book, Keep Your Day Job, How to AI-Proof Your Career, is on Amazon and wherever you get books. See you next week.